Fantastic. Great. It's 8:43 Central African time. And at this point, I wish to welcome everybody to the Kilimo Bunifu workshop. It's a 2-day workshop, and we will get into more details about what the workshop is about. And we can't do anything without an official opening and a start and a speech from the vision bearer, the man of the hour, Brian Stevenson. So Brian, I'm going to ask you to please step into the stage and unmute yourself, and I'm going to pin you for everybody to be able to see you. And I'm also going to ask if you need any slides. I have made you a co-host so that you can share slides if you wish to.
Thank you, Pulang, and thank you everyone for coming. I don't need any slides. I will be very brief in the interest of time. I am so happy to see all of your faces populating the screen. I can't take a lot of credit for this idea. I am from the US and I am living here in Benin 50-50 of my time. But 2 years ago, in 2018, when I came to Benin, the 8th International Conference on Appropriate Technology was hosted at the Songhai Center in Porto Novo, Benin. And that's when I met Father Godfrey Zamojo, who is one of our panelists this morning and also a keynote speaker for the conference, for the 9th International Conference. As we all know, this was intended to be a in-person conference, an in-person workshop, where people would physically be connected to each other. But it was at that 8th International Conference that I saw the vision of Songhai. And I was inspired. So I give Father Zamojo a lot of credit for even thinking to put on a workshop like this. The other thing is that in my reading and looking at what's the situation of food security in Africa, I learned early this year about the role that medium-scale farming has on the continent. It grew tremendously over the last, say, 10, 15 years, partly prompted by the opportunity as food prices were rising, investors wanted to throw their money into farming. And so it is with that initiative, when we looked at the fact that in some countries, as in, say, Zambia, it's almost 50% of the farming is being done by medium-scale farms. And so given that we are all interested in appropriateness and we're all interested in sustainable farming, a rejection of what has been called conventional even called falsely the Green Revolution. There is a need to steer the direction towards sustainability, especially with climate change. And so this workshop is an intention to see how, with your great minds, we can come together and create partnerships, create a synergy where medium scale farming is healthy, but it also helps the smallholder farmer at the same time, because they are also the backbone of agriculture, and they are the backbone of um, the whole industry on the continent. So that's what inspired this workshop. I'm going to read something that was shared initially by Father Zamojo earlier this summer, and it was a short poem from Sonia Renee Taylor, and it's in response to COVID. She says, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." And that was written by Sonia Renee Taylor. And it is in that spirit that we enter this two-day workshop of Kilimo Bunifu, Innovative Agriculture. I also want to thank some key people that have helped make this happen. First of all, Stella Odaba-Waeta of Passion of Hope, who is in Kenya, and the two of us started this journey together back in March. And then to recognize Joelle Asiago, who is chairperson of Passion of Hope, who came on only in probably September, October. But it is Joel that we give a lot of credit, because agriculture is his heart. And it is a lot of kudos to Joel. And lastly, to Mael Ahuini, who is here in Benin. And just by divine order, was ready to jump in the last month to help us pull all of this together. So I thank those three people. And lastly, but not least, I thank Puleng. Puleng was introduced to me by a friend, and it was not for her technical skills in Zoom. It was because she knew how to pull a workshop together with real people, with a blank whiteboard, and create something new. And so that's how I was introduced to Puleng in Pretoria. Again, the conference was to be held in person in Pretoria at this time. And so when we realized that we were going to have to do something virtual, Puleng turned out to be the best answer possible. And it is for her credit that we have this workshop with the great music and the fun that we're expected to have. And so I thank you all for joining in and committing this precious time. I know all of you are very important leaders, and this time is important. So we want to make it worth it. And we thank you for being here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Puleng.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. Can we all please give a big round of applause to him? Please. Right. Did you see the challenge with Zoom that we didn't quite hear those claps because as you came in, you were muted? Well, we got a way to do it. And so what we do with the Zoom applause is try that. Yeah. Now Brian feels celebrated. Yeah. So hopefully you will continue in that same way after a speaker, show them appreciation, however way that you can use your hands to show them that you have appreciated what they have said. Then a couple of other things with the Zoom environment as well, that a very quick high level where the invitation is really to make this meeting as interactive, as engaging, and as fun as we can. And guess what? Who is responsible to make that happen? It's not us, the facilitators, it's not Brian, it's not Zoom, it's not the technology, but it's every individual who's connected to this call today. You are responsible to make this meeting amazing and engaging and interactive. And we have a couple of principles that we would like to share with you to prepare us for that. We're going to shortly have a keynote and hear from someone really important about everything. But before that, why don't we just explore a few things about a virtual environment that will make this meeting amazing? So the first one, and I see a lot of you have already done it, is to have our videos on. Very lovely to see the smiling faces. Did you see Brian smile a few times because he was getting feedback from all the smiles and he was seeing the nods? If we all had our videos off and no one was smiling back, he would have given his speech like that and read from a script and be totally disconnected. But he also was feeding from this wonderful energy, from the smiles, the nods, the appreciation, and the physical. It almost feels like there's a physical presence. We are in your room, you are in our rooms, and it's really, really, really beautiful. But we create that with just turning our web cameras on the whole time. Let's try and just switch them on the whole time. The only times that we don't have to switch our cameras off is during the breaks. So during the breaks is the only time that I'll say switch off your camera, don't leave the Zoom room, mute yourself and switch off the camera. The rest of the time, please keep them on. Then just a few high level things about Zoom. If you go to the top right corner of your Zoom, and right now, probably because I have spotlighted myself for the sake of the recording, because we are recording in the background and we want that recording to capture every speaker as they speak. So possibly right now you're just seeing me and then you're seeing little faces at the top. If you get tired of seeing my face or a speaker's face, you can always click on gallery view. So top right corner, then you're not stuck with just seeing a speaker and you can get to see everyone else. And you can also get to see their reactions to a speaker. Then when you get tired of seeing everybody else, you can go back to speaker mode. And that way you'll only see the speaker's video. So play around with it. Zoom has also introduced this funny little thing. If you have the latest Zoom installed on your computer, you can literally drag people around on your computer if you have gallery mode. So you can drag around and you can drag Brian and go and make him sit next to Mayel and make Mayel to sit next to Kevin and Kevin to move around and speak next to Percy. So you can literally play a little game yourself if you're on gallery view and we don't have any speaker in that moment. You literally can drag people around and have a bit of fun with it. And I can see the positioning everyone has works perfectly where we're able to see everyone's face because for most of you, there's no light behind you. Once there's light behind you, it becomes a challenge to see your face. So we always make sure that you have light in front of you and you switch it on, then we get to see you clearer. And then the sound and the mic and all of that. Try and make sure that it works so that when you want to make a contribution, because this is a very interactive workshop, that we are able to hear you and people can hear you back and you can make your contribution easily. We do have the chat platform that we will be using, and we encourage you to use a lot to communicate with one another. Yeah, so communicating with one another, to talk to each other, to one another, to ask questions to the panel, to engage with the materials that has been shared. Whatever it is that you do, you're welcome to use the chat just to keep us all engaged at all times. You can also send private chats to one another by selecting the person and then sending a message directly to that person. Then there are these nice reactions here that I encourage you to use. We're about to hear a talk right now. Those little reactions are saying, we love what you said, and it doesn't hurt to put a heart on there, or wow, like well done for that. And you can put a reaction there with a clap, or say, laugh out loud. If the speaker says something really funny, please use those electronic reactions as the speaker is speaking to encourage them, to make sure that they feel like they have been listened to. So that's about it with the chat, with the Zoom environment. You will see later on, I'm going to be sending you to what we call breakaway rooms, where you're going to have small group discussions, work with each other as small groups, and then we'll come back into the space. But for now, just enjoy each other's company and all be present at the same time. Now I'm going to ask you to do something before I share very high level principles of our workshop today. I'm going to ask each one of you to really shout out really loud greetings in your own language. A greeting, how do you say good morning in your own language? Now, having done this with Pan-African programs and also global programs, just in the last month, I probably worked with about 10 Pan-African programs. I have found it super fascinating how all of our greetings are so unique, so different, and they have totally different um, meanings. Yeah. And so I want to hear from each person your own greeting in your own language. So we learned in Sesotho, when you say good morning, you say dumelang. And when you directly translate that, it's have faith. And then when you are in another city, from a culture, from a Zulu culture in South Africa, you say sawubona. And when you directly translate that, it means I see you. And then in another country, somebody coming from a Jewish environment said, well, when we greet each other, we say shalom, which means peace. Another one said, when we greet each other, I can't remember the exact words, but it means let the day start bright and clear, or something like that. Everybody had this wonderful direct translations that meant we have such richness of culture and language in our continent that sets us apart as the continent. And I believe we do a lot of work with design thinking. I gave this talk last year where I said design thinking is actually most of the principles, if you dig deep into them, it's the roots of our African culture that somehow we lose when we get educated and we get too civilized and we forget what our grandparents have taught us. So we never in facilitation believe that you're fully present until your voice has been heard. And your voice is heard through your greeting this morning, and that greeting must be in your language. But because of the time constraints, we're all going to greet at the same time together. Unmute yourselves on the Zoom, everyone. And then you're going to think about a greeting from your own language. And I'm going to get my video here because I'm going to capture the video from this meeting. Everybody greeting at the same time. So We are all going to say things in our own language. Or
Habari asubuhi.
Habari ya leo. Habari ya asubuhi.
Habari asubuhi.
Bushiere.
Oriena.
Hola, kere kinume.
Ugo wa Kioko.
Bolonie.
Oyaure uru.
Oh, hello. Ekuisheo.
Ekwishe.
keep them coming. You have another 30 seconds.
Good morning.
Jambo.
Zalamkadze.
That sounds like umeamkaje. Very, very similar.
Fantastic. This was really, really phenomenal. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was amazing. Now, you're also welcome to type those greetings into the chat. And as you type your greeting, also say what it means in your language. Yeah, so your greeting and then a dash of what it means. We are going to capture all of these insights and say, at the Kilimo Bunifu workshop, we had 26 delegates and they all greeted in their own language, and this is what they meant. Thank you. Stella has started. Yo, I see you there. It excites me. Is that a greeting, Damian?
It is it for me. Whenever I see someone that I enjoy, I shout, yo! I spend a lot of time outdoors, so they're usually over there, you know, so you have to shout. And I've got small children, and it's a lot nicer to shout, yo, than hey, you.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. So we have Salam, Bushere, Bokatov, Bushere, Uyaure. The day has broken. Beruru, good to you all. Uvo Wakioko, how's your morning? Uyaware, Uru, can we hear what it means, please, Messi? Meaning good day. Fantastic. Keep them coming because we're going to capture this as insights from our workshop. Fantastic. Habari yako. What does it mean, Lillian? Habari yako.
That's a Kiswahili greeting. So yako is you, one person. If you're talking to one person, maybe you're speaking Kiswahili. But if you're talking to many people, you're saying morning to many people, then you say habari yenu. Yenu is the plural of, yeah.
Beautiful. And Mael sent to me privately by mistake. Ofon Gajia, did you wake up well? Thank you, Mael. Thank you. This is really, and it also shows the richness of the diversity of the people in this workshop. So I also want to say a big well done to Brian, to Stella, to Mayel, to Joelle for being able to attract such a diverse group of people in this workshop. Now let the exchange continue. I'm going to very quickly go through high-level agenda and then talk very high level about some of the things that we expect, the behaviors that will help to make today and tomorrow fantastic. So basically today we are going to have the first panel this morning. A few panelists are going to speak to us, and then we'll have a Q&A after each panelist, and then we'll go on a break at 10 o'clock Central African time. That would be 11 o'clock Eastern African time. We'll take a very short break from 10 o'clock to 10:15. When we come back, we'll now come back into an interactive session, meaning we're going to work as groups, meet people in our groups, engage, get to know each other, connect, and explore together. And then we'll go to lunch at 12:30 Central African time and 1:30 Eastern African time. And then we'll take a whole hour for lunch. Then we'll come back and have an interactive session defining a problem. So the whole idea today is to make sure that we navigate through a journey today of just uncovering the insights, listening to our panelists, having conversations with each other, knowing who's in the room, connecting with one another, and sharing our thoughts and our ideas. No one is going to come up with solutions today. We're really just going to be in exploration mode, discovery mode, and just unpacking what's beneath the iceberg when it comes to the core that brings us together, which is integration of appropriateness in medium-scale farming enterprises. Then you'll have an assignment tonight with your group, so you'll find your own way of reconnecting with your group, because it will prepare you for tomorrow's fully interactive session. What does the fully interactive session tomorrow entail? We're going to reimagine the future together. We're going to come up with ideas and strengthen those ideas. And then at the end, we hope to build some minimum viable interventions that we get to present as final group presentations at the end of the day. Now, we will have 4 different groups. They have all been constituted already to ensure that there is diversity in each group, so there's enough voice of the different constituencies that are represented here. So you will get to meet your group sometime this morning when we come back from the break. But from now until 10 o'clock, it's just going to be discussions from the panel. Now, I thought I'll take my 10 minutes to just land some principles that we use in our workshops to make sure that everything about our workshop is about engaging creativity, opening up, and making sure that we are creating together. So I have a very short 2.5-minute clip on creativity that I put together to remind you on how we can behave together in a creative workshop. So sit back, watch this, read all the quotes, and then absorb them.
I'm
So I put together that clip exactly 11 years back in 2009. I had just been exposed to creativity, to the principles of creativity. I was doing an MBA at the time at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. And I was on this journey of exploration that exposed me to design thinking principles, creativity principles, and led me to start wanting to engage with creativity very differently. So while before we used to think about creativity as something in the arts, something related to music, to the arts, and so on, this basically said to me that creativity is something that we are all born with. It's inside of us, it's powerful, and we can use it to unpack, create, imagine, and it can impact and influence so many industries. And for the last 11 years, I've been doing nothing but finding ways to bring creativity and tapping into this creative power in different industries. And for today, I want us to go ahead and just unpack this power of creativity together in this very workshop. Thank you, Mercy and Kirubel, for feeling that was inspiring and that was amazing. The feedback means a lot. Now, I want to remind you that in this work of creativity, in this way of a workshop, we say creative problem solving starts with two assumptions: that every single person is creative, and also creativity, creative skills can be learned and can be enhanced. So my invitation is, whoever you find yourself working room, whoever is on this call today, you must respect each and every person and know that everyone is born creative, and we all have a power to apply this creativity to imagine and to shape this industry and come up with the best of the best solutions. So it comes from that space. A high level process that we're going to follow is this one. It's long, it's been there for a long time, over 70 years. It's creative problem solving process that was conceived many years ago in the 50s by Alex Osborne and Sid Pans. And they said, when you want to navigate a problem situation, start by clarifying the context and spend enough time clarifying the context, then come up with ideas, then develop those ideas and implement. Yeah. So as you will see today, I will take you through this process step by step. It's for me to carry that process and guide you through that process. It's for you to trust the process. So I've done it in various industries, globally, locally, and I do it every single week, same process, but we embody it and it manifests differently with different industries. All you have to do is just trust that we have a process that's going to guide you through the thinking together. In our process, a diamond plays a very critical role. That diamond is the ability to diverge, to go beyond a place of familiarity around a matter and start to explore the landscape of discovery and exploration of new insights. We don't move on from one process to another until we have truly innovated, we have truly challenged our own assumptions about a matter through conversation, through engagement with other people. So this process of opening up of a diamond, we call it a diverging process. When we do diverging, we also have rules that we follow. So constantly we'll be diverging a lot through this 2-day workshop. So I'm going to ask you to constantly remember these 5 rules that we've put together, which is number 1, defer judgment. Don't judge people. Don't judge what you hear. Don't judge what people are saying before you can truly immerse yourself in those insights. And then have conversations where you seek quantity of insights rather than quality. So sometimes when you engage with one another, you find that people are looking for quality and then they judge ideas prematurely, only to find that idea that you thought was stupid, maybe it was a seed for a quality idea. So all ideas are welcome in this environment and there's no judgment. And we seek wild and wacky ideas. The more wild an idea is, the more it's welcome in a workshop like this. And then we build on each other's ideas. So you know those workshops where when you hear somebody speaking and you constantly challenging that person, they end up shying away and they don't mention the ideas anymore because they feel the atmosphere is judgmental and they feel like their ideas are never good enough. This is not that type of workshop. This is the type of workshop where each and every one of us is intentional about building on one and each other's ideas and embracing and seeing the world from different perspectives. And then we write every single thing down. There will still be an opportunity to converge because we have created ourselves multiple options. And when we converge, we make decision, we want to move forward, we become affirmative, deliberate, check with objectives, improve on ideas, consider novelty, and we move forward. Now, how we communicate in this environment then becomes very important. So we democratize leadership such that as you go into the room, there's no leader, but all of us take that space of leadership. So we have shared leadership, we co-create, we collaborate, we work together. There's no boss like what we are seeing on the screen where there's a boss because they're big and the other one is skimpy and just like, oh, surrendering. Nope, we don't have anything like that. And we have collaborative, equal space environment where everybody's an adult and everybody takes leadership. But language plays a very big role. How we communicate with each other, how we speak to each other, how we invite each other, we create an atmosphere where we are more inviting and we are more open to other people rather than closing them with our comments. So you'll hear me say things like, use a language stem, it would be great if, or use a language stem, how might we, or use a language stem, how to, or in what ways might we, oh, please, by the way, yes, but is banned from a workshop like this. We use only yes and because our intention is to build on other people's ideas. Yeah. So what we call creativity killer phrases will not be heard in this workshop. Things like, we tried it last year. Nope, we don't use statements like that. We'd rather turn those statements into lip stimulators, which inspire creativity, such as, what did we learn from it that could make it better this year? Or it's not in the budget. No, how could we make it make financial sense? Or management won't buy into it. Oh, how could we make management to drool for it? And so on and so forth. So how do we shift that language from an oppressive, killing, spirit killing, overburdening killer phrases to that which encourages, ignites, and invites people to participate and engage? And there are many examples of killer phrases and stimulators. Now, this is another thing that I want to remind you, that sometimes from your perspective, maybe you have a PhD in this particular area, you have a view, you have a stance, you have clarity, and it's confirmed and it's the truth. Now, another person sees exactly the same issue at hand, but they're looking from a different perspective. And maybe it's the different perspective in terms of their geographical location or their education level or their experience with that particular matter. And they see a different thing from what you see. So they might be seeing a 6 while you see a 9. Same number seen differently because we see as we are. So my invitation to you is to step out of your comfort zone, leave those spaces that you hold on so tightly, and seek to see the world from other people's perspective. Be curious and go and ask questions and engage and want to see a 6, want to see a 9, and then sell from that perspective. And that little button that you have at the back of your head. It's called judgment. You can choose to switch it off and engage from a place where you don't apply so much critical thinking that it kills ideas, but you apply creative thinking with the patience that when it's time to apply judgment and be critical, the time will come. Yeah. And then second, last one is, I've said in these workshops, there's no yes buts. There's only yes and. So don't criticize each other. Yes, but is not allowed in this workshop. We listen with the intention to build, to explore, to ask curious questions. We move from a place of a knower to a place of a wanderer, wondering, have conversations from a place of wondering rather than having them from a place of, oh, I know it all, and I'm here to show how much I know it. Then we're going to be writing everything down. I've said that no matter how big and small, we're going to make sure to write everything down. And we'll have these virtual post-it notes you'll see later, where you're going to have shared documents and you'll be writing from those documents. Then I'm going to invite you to listen more and really listen generously. It's interesting with listening that we were given skills to read and write growing up, but no one really gave us the skills to listen. Listening, so we sometimes listen pretentiously. Sometimes we listen with judgment. Sometimes we listen uninterested. Sometimes we listen in absentia. My invitation is to listen generously, means you shut down your judgment, you curiously engaged with another person and encourage them with your physical presence that I'm listening, ask the right questions, and engage and see the world from that person's perspective. That's very powerful to engage in a workshop like this, because what we really don't want is to do the same thing that we have done before and then expect different results. So all of those key principles are going to help you and position you to engage to get far more quality outcomes. And so lastly, we invite you to look for the second right answer, seek multiple perspectives, embrace other people's worldview. Yeah, and always seek to expand your worldview by asking other people who are different from you. And then seek to see the invisible. Don't work with just first level information. Ask the right questions. Unlearn, learn, relearn again, and let this workshop just be a fun environment where we are learning together, exploring together, and having fun. Yeah, and always remembering that if plan A fails, there's still 25 other letters left. Yeah, so we don't think we learn by doing, but we learn by reflecting on what we have done. So with that, I just want to say we have set you up with the best of the best leaders in the field, wonderful panelists, a wonderful leader, Brian, here, and then wonderful people in the workshop who are going to share a lot and engage, and you're going to do lots of work together. Be present, give yourself a gift of being present. Been exploring lately that the word present, as in present, has in it the connotation of a gift. So what is the biggest gift that you can give yourself right now? Is this present moment. What is the biggest gift you can give to everyone around you right now? It's the gift of your presence. And we're living in attention economics. And this is the time that your presence is such a great gift. It's a time that your presence is such an honorable gift, because you could be logged in one computer and be on your phone watching a movie and doing other things and just mute this side, or be on the phone checking out email and just pretentiously be on this workshop and being totally absent with us while you're doing other things that are more important. But you can also choose that the gift that I'm going to give to myself, the gift that I'm going to give to the organizers of this workshop who have worked this hard over months, and the gift I'm going to give to these panelists who have chosen to spend time with us today is the gift of my presence. I'm going to engage, be present, and contribute. And that's the invitation, really. So have fun, and I'll now hand over to Brian to introduce our next panelists. Over to you, Brian. Thank you for those of you who gave me a bit of an applause. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. It is time for our panelists to speak. And our schedule was the Commissioner, Ambassador Sacco, and I'm not sure that she's present. Is the ambassador here? Okay. If not, I'm going to change the sequence and ask Father Zamojo to lead off. And he would be followed by Dr. Olubandwa from Kenya. Father Zamojo, are you okay to get started now?
Yeah, no problem, Brian. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much I'm going to spend a few seconds to thank everybody that made this possible. I'm very, really excited. And our charming facilitator too, you're making it very, very nice. So I give you a little bit hand there. I'm really excited. Now I'm going to start by following Brian's takeoff comments about why has this become necessary. Brian just told us a few years ago with the food crisis, price going up, crisis everywhere, riots everywhere. And that, to me, it was a symptom of what has been going wrong for a long time. I think my fear today is that we are doing a symptomatic therapy, reactionary, of that crisis that just showed up a few years ago by investing left and right up to the international organization, everybody on the bandwagon. But our position, I think what this group will be doing there, take back and see take stock. Because the trajectory we take today is going to determine the type of development, the type of food and agricultural system developed tomorrow. So for me, it's time to wait. As the French will say, c'est urgent d'attendre. It's very urgent to wait, to really go back and find out. And I think this is the appropriateness of it. I'm going to start from them. Going back to the reality of our lives, reality of nature. What are the fundamentals? What are the working principles of our planet? And go back and study them and see whether it is going to be a new springboard for us to correct the mistakes. And I think this should be the focus of this workshop we're doing today. The capacity to go back, understand what has been going on, and then go from there. This is going to be most of the things. So it's not a question of just going forward. This workshop and what we're trying to do is not necessarily going forward, designing new things, but rather going back to the fundamentals, moving from an arrogant position, I call it homo arrogance, to a biomimicry, understanding the workings of the planet, and then borrowing from them to rebuild, to reconstruct. So to me, it's more of restorative thing. Let's go back and understand what nature has been telling us for the past 2 billion years. This is the key point. If we're able to understand it, then we'll be able to get a new way of looking at things, And that's going to help us to build that new vision of our world. New technologies, new ways of thinking should be aligned to that new things, the new vision we are holding today. So this is really how I like us to take it then today. So where do we go from there? We said up to now, we've been operating under an old, which started about the 17th century, mechanistic model, piecemeal model, that has brought this problem today. This is where we are. This existed centuries ago about a world disconnected, mechanistic model. And now, luckily for us, we are understanding from modern science that our world is related. Our world is radically relational. Everything is connected. And this is what is now giving us a new paradigm, a new way of looking at things. If we let ourselves be influenced by these new ways of thinking, which is systematic, we know we'll be able to design a new agricultural system aligned with nature. When we dance with nature, nature will smile at us. We have been taking the old way of looking at reality, that is mechanistic model, I said so. It is that the present conventional agricultural system, as Brian told us, is based on that old way of piecemeal, disjunctive type of thing, which is bringing entropy. What modern science is telling us, those of us who have time to look at modern science, have seen a new type of world, a world connected, a world built on synergy, complementarity, and supplementarity. These are the key words. Our world is based on those principles of collaboration, supplementarity, complementarity, and synergy. If we're able to capture those basic principles today and rebuild our agricultural system on them, I think we'll create synergy. Instead of entropy, we develop what I call syntropy, and this is the way out. So this, my brothers and sisters, this is what I'm really proposing for us to do today, to start look at ourselves, move from that arrogant people, men we are, who know it all, to people who are humble, who have the time to look at reality, do the real science now, and then discover these principles, and then build our technologies based on those principles. I call them appropriate technologies. This is where appropriateness comes in here. Appropriate technologies are technologies based on those principles. Principles of synergy, the way our world is created. If we're able to do that now, we'll come out with new ways of doing things. 2 + 2 is not going to be 4. 2 + 2, within that synergetical thing, we create more and scale will come over. So this is really what I think we'll be doing. That's what Songa has been doing for the past 30-something years and is yielding fruits. And this is going to be my recommendation to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Zamojo.
Thank you.
We are now going to have Dr. Adija Olubandwa speak. Are you ready?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me, Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Puleng, for that, the beginning. That was very good. Thank you, Brian. You guys, looking at you guys, you've actually taken words out of my mouth, you know. I'm going to talk about partnership and resource mobilization. And from the beginning, what I was hearing was just about partnership, respecting one another, working together. We have different resources. And I was like, these guys are actually taking words out of my mouth. But let me try the next 10 minutes, yeah? Let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. So
Not yet.
Share screen at the bottom of the green button at the bottom.
You cannot still see?
No. So if you go to the green button, that's
I'm actually going to the green button. I don't know what's happening.
and then you click on what you want to share, and then go to the bottom again and click on another button that says share.
Let me again. You have this, huh? Am I sharing?
Not yet.
Puleng, you have this. Maybe you do it for me?
Did you send it via email?
Yeah, let me try again. So you are saying I go to share screen?
Yes.
Which I have.
And then you select what you want to share.
And then I select what I want to share, double click.
You click once, and then at the bottom there you go.
I'm sharing.
Fantastic!
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, technology. Yeah.
To be on
Yeah. So I talk
mode,
about partnership.
click on present to be on presenter mode.
I click on
Present at the bottom, the funnel at the bottom.
I click what?
The funnel at the bottom, just to be on present. Yes, that one.
This one.
That one. Fantastic. You're phenomenal. There you
Good. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Puleng. Yeah, now I wanted to talk about partnership and resource mobilization for sustainable agriculture. Just like we have said, even as our guest speaker has said, we have so many players in agriculture. And when we talk of Africa, I'm so happy about this workshop because we're actually talking about the whole of Africa. When you talk about the whole of Africa, we're actually talking about agriculture. For the economies in Africa to be sustainable, we talk about agriculture because agriculture contributes to more than 70% actually, more than 70% of the economy. So we talk about agriculture. When we talk about agriculture, we have so many players. We have researchers, and I'm very happy that in this workshop, we have quite a good representation of the researchers. We have the farmers themselves. We also have the manufacturers. We cannot leave them out. We have the market. We have the inputs. We need the inputs. We also need the financial institutions. We need so many people when we talk about agriculture. For agriculture to be sustainable, for it to be meaningful, for us to be able to get any profits out of it, we need so many players. For a long time, we have been talking about improving agriculture. A lot of research has gone into the inputs that are going into agriculture, but not much has gone into partnerships and resource mobilization. Why am I talking about partnerships and resource mobilization? There are all these people that I've actually talked about have something to bring on the table. And there is no one particular player who has everything. Various people have different things. Of course, somebody would challenge me and say, if you are talking about crop production, maybe even if you're talking about cashew nuts that we were shown here at the beginning, if you're talking about cashew nuts, you can't go into cashew nut production unless you are sure you have enough resources. It is true. But the truth is that you do not have all the resources. And therefore, you need to tap the resources from other players. And that is the picture you can see there at the beginning of my presentation, that we actually need resources from all over, including even the heavens. You can see the clouds. But most important for us here, there isn't much you can do about the heavens because that is for God. But for us, the resources, we have to pull and push the resources together. You can see the resources must fit together. And that is why we are now talking about partnerships. So there's a lot that I could talk about, but because of the time that I've been given, I can't talk about all of them, but I'm just highlighting this because you can go ahead and even read further on this that I have highlighted here. Because of time, just allow me to continue. So the importance of partnership and resource mobilization, just like I've said, and many of the speakers, actually all the speakers have talked about before, is that all of us do not have enough resources. That is what I've said up there. And we have a lot of programs. Agriculture is just one of them. One of the projects, you can call it a project, is just one of them. But we have so many that are competing for the same resources, competing for the same partners, and that is why we have to mobilize, bring them together. When we do partnership and resource mobilization, we are expanding the basis for policy dialogue. You know, we can want to do agriculture, but we cannot leave out our governments. We cannot leave out our policy makers. And therefore, we have to expand the policy dialogue and advocacy in regard to our objectives, goals, and program priorities. Our governments must know what are our priorities. Sharing of information, knowledge, and experience. If we have partnerships and resource mobilization, this will help us also to share the information, like what we are doing right now. We are going to share the information. We are going to look at this information. We are going to critique the same. We are going to come up out of here with more and important and relevant information. 3, increasing participation in efforts to develop norms and standards of farming and business. Different players have different standards. Different players have different norms. Different countries have different norms. You can actually grow your crops in Africa, but you'll sell the crops in Europe. The norms in Africa and the norms in Europe are different. And that is why we need partnership with all these organizations. Improving coordinated farming, management and business, facilitating the acceptance, utilization, and disbursement of resources to achieve programs, project objectives. Important points to note in partnerships and resource mobilization is that partnerships are to be entered into and managed with transparency. We must trust one another. We must be honest with one another. We must be transparent. 2, partnership activities are to be designed and implemented in a manner that ensures that all partners have clear and agreed responsibilities and accountability. That is, before we start a partnership, we should be having an agreement. In fact, we should be having a contract where we know who is responsible for what. You know, everything is clear just before the partnerships. I've given us there things to read. Because of time, please, you'll just go and read on that. Let me look at the requirements of proactive partnership. Requirements of proactive partnership. 1, the governance of the partnership must be open, receptive, sensitive, responsive, and must internalize, accept, and institutionalize the partnership at appropriate levels. I'm saying the partnership at appropriate levels. I have said at the farmer level, we could be having a partnership. At the government's levels, we also need to have the partnerships. At the market level, we also need to have the partnerships. All members of the partnership or all players should internalize all these that we are talking about. Secondly, we cannot have a partnership without the farmers themselves. They're the most important. Here we are talking about the middle scale farmers, who are able to help and bring up the small scale farmers. And therefore the local people are very, very important. So these are local people, particularly the rural poor. We must help them to develop skills in negotiation so that they're not just forced to swallow whatever that they're being given. and claim making to effectively engage the government in participatory local development, planning and partnership buildings. In Kenya, let me give an example of Kenya. We have the county governments. The small scale farmers, the middle scale farmers can actually start at that level, engaging the government at that particular level, going towards the central government. We also have the non-governmental organizations. These ones must be open to collaboration with the government, and also with the small scale farmers, with the medium scale farmers. In our case, we are talking about the medium scale farmers. The non-governmental organizations should not just come to bring aid, but should also be ready and willing to share in the risks. That way, they will actually be committed to what they're actually bringing on board, and also creativity. All partners must actually be creative. I've skipped a lot of things, so later on we can read on the same. So for partnerships to be successful, they must be free of conflict. There are a lot of things that we need for partnerships to be successful, but I've not gone into all those. I've just gone into conflicts, which is one of the main reasons why partnerships break up. What are the sources of conflicts in partnerships? One, value disagreements. You have different values, just like I've said about the non-governmental organizations. What do they bring on board? They must also be committed to the failures of that particular partnership or that particular project. So the values must be the same. Everybody must agree with the same values that they have put on board on paper, and that is why we need a contract right from the beginning. Two, personality conflicts. Puleng, you brought up something, those two hands, the big hand and the small hand that was actually, giving up, we do not want that in partnerships. We must agree, communication, misunderstandings. Puleng, you also brought out that very well, in us greeting one another in our mother tongue, so that we can have the same understanding. That is communication, So we must be speaking at the same level. We must be speaking the same language. We must trust one another. And that is why I'm saying in number 4, doubts about priority needs for partnerships. We should not have doubts. We should trust one another. From the time we come up with the contracts, we should be clear what we want so that we do not have doubts. Confusion over differing degrees of members' autonomy. All these should all appear in our contract so that we know who is doing what, up to what level, how far does one partner go, so that this does not bring about conflict that will break down the partnerships. Then the last one is different power interests. We should also be clear right from the beginning of the partnership, what are the power interests, so that we do not have conflict in the power interests. Yeah. What are the characteristics of failed partnerships? Characteristics of failed partnerships. One is a history of conflict among key interests, where we find that we have a conflict of interest before the partnership. Please, for God's sake, you do something about that, or just don't get into a partnership because it's going to fail. Yeah. How do we know a partnership is likely to fail? 2, one partner manipulates or dominates. And Puleng, you also brought out that very clearly, where whatever we are going to say is very clear. You don't put a but there. I agree, but no, I agree, and that kind of thing, so that we do not manipulate one another. Don't get tired. Lack of clear or unrealistic goals will also lead to a failed partnership. 3, lack of, that is 4, differences of philosophy and ways of working. This should come clearly in the contract Before we get into the partnership, we should be able to know what are the various philosophies that are there. Are they the same? Do we agree the ways of doing things so that what we have in the contract will actually work for all the players in that particular partnership? Lack of communication. Communication is very important, you know, not only in partnerships, but we know in all relationships. Communication is very important. The minute you see you're not able to communicate in any relationship, you know that this is actually heading towards failure. And this is a result, this results into failure in partnership. An equal and an acceptable balance of power and control. An equal and an acceptable balance of power and control. This must come right from the beginning of the partnership. You can look at it and say, how can we have an equal, how can we have equal or balanced power? You know, when there's one partner who is bringing in much more than the other partner, the non-governmental organization is bringing in much more than the middle scale farmer. You know, how can they have the same power? No, it is a partnership. So whatever that they are bringing on board, every partner is important. So the power must be balanced. It must be the same. And even the control of the same powers must be the same. People must accept one another. Partners must accept and respect one another. Then we have key interests missing from the partnership. This is the mistake we make right from the time when we are drafting the agreement or even the contract for this particular partnership. The key interests all must be captured. And how are they going to be handled? They all must be captured. The other thing are hidden agendas. There are partners who come on board with hidden agendas. They have other things they're looking for, which the other partner does not know. When they start going for those things, then the partnership actually has to fail. Financial and time commitments outweigh the potential benefits. You know, when a partner realizes that they are not going to reap as much as they really thought, or as much as their financial commitments, actually, as much as their financial commitment does what? English is a tough language, eh? You wonder, you know, it's easy for a partner to actually run away from that particular partnership. But how do we prevent this? By making sure that all this comes out in the agreement or even in the contract. For partnerships, why do we come into partnerships? We come into partnerships because of the resources. Like I said at the beginning, we have so many projects, we have so many programs that are all competing for the same resources, you know, and there's no one particular entity, no one particular organization that has all the resources. And that's why it is important for us to mobilize the resources from all the partners. Why do we mobilize the resources? One, to diversify and expand resources so that you actually have more than you can manage to bring on the table. And that way we can actually bring about sustainable agriculture. The researchers, they have the knowledge, they have the information that they have actually researched. The farmer has the land, but the farmer does not have the knowledge. The farmer needs the knowledge from the researchers. And even the learning institutions, you know, they all have things to bring on board. The governments, the central governments, you know, the NGOs, yeah? Two, resource mobilization helps to formulate an independent budget. If you work on your own, you can actually imagine and think that you cannot manage this particular business. And for us in Africa, when we talk about farming, that is our life. So we should be able to manage this. But if you look at the resources that other people have, you can actually see, yeah, this is something that is manageable. This is something that can be done. Three, to decrease dependency on others, because it is mutual. Everybody is bringing something on board. You don't really feel like you're being dependent on somebody because you're also giving them something. And four, for sustainability of institutions and programs, in this case, sustainable agriculture, we need resource mobilization. We need to bring resources from everywhere. The next point is to expand deep relations with the stakeholder and community. The community will have more trust in you. I'm talking about these middle scale farmers, that is us, me included. We'll have more trust if this person who is dealing with us has more resources, has enough resources, and is actually working also with us. And also to fulfill responsibility towards the community, we need to mobilize the resources, all the resources for the community. Many times, many organizations, many donors, even non-governmental organizations do not realize the importance of the community. The community is just to be given spoon-fed, you know, but it is important also to mobilize the resources from the community so that they feel that they are also bringing in on board, you know, enough to bring about this sustainable agriculture that we are talking about. Lastly, to develop new thinking and challenge the old traditions. Just like we have been, you know, at the introduction, what we were given, what attitude should we have as we are going through this, this workshop? You know, these challenges our thinking and our old traditions. We are not doing this workshop the way we did before. And this is what we are talking about, resource mobilization. If you look at our workshop, you look at Brian is from a very different country, Puleng from a very different country, all these people bringing something on board. This is what we are talking about, resource mobilization. The features of resource mobilization, one, resource identification. Resource identification, we have to identify the resources. Please, I've listed some of the resources there. You can add other resources because you can see in the first point I've said among others. The second one, identification of resource providers. We can identify resources, but if we do not have providers, then we cannot be able to mobilize that. And we are in identification of the resource provider. We are not just identifying that this is the resource provider, but we are also identifying what resources do they have, how can we approach them, how can we get these resources from them, how can we use these resources, what rules and regulations do they have that is actually governing these resources. We have to look at all that. Identification of mechanism of source and receive resources. How are we going to get these resources from these resource providers? What are the conditions that they have? 4, expansion of relations with the resource provider. When we talk of expansion of relations, there's so much to do in expanding the relations. You know, we might even, the agreement that we are drawing up, the contract that we are drawing up, all of it might actually go into the same. The right use of resources, the knowledge and skills. My power is going off, I don't know why. The knowledge, yeah, I've seen why. The knowledge and skills in resource mobilization, we also have to be aware of the knowledge and skills in resource mobilization. We also need to have knowledge on the thought of institutional sustainability, because our agriculture has to be sustainable. Resource mobilization strategies. 1, assessment of the current situation. We have to assess the current situation because we could be having a resource, maybe in Egerton University. Let me talk about Egerton University because it is my institution, you know, but can you be able to assess that resource? Can the farmers be able to assess that resource? Why? We could be having a problem right now in Egerton University and you can't assess that resource. Therefore, you must check first of all, what is the assessment? Can you be able to assess it? 2, identifying required resources for the project. Not all resources that you identify you'll actually need for sustainable agriculture, but which are the important resources that we require for sustainable agriculture. 3, comparing what is needed and what is available to determine the gaps. So we must compare what is needed and what is available to determine the gaps. Puleng, you're making my, my slide more beautiful. Thank you. 4, identifying potential sources of needed resources. We have to identify the potential sources.
The hearts have a meaning. You're
Oh, they have thank you.
The time. So
Thank you.
when I fill up the whole slide with hearts, it means it's really time up. So when you start seeing them populate.
Oh, and I was thanking you so much. I was saying love, love, love.
I wanted to do it silently.
I'm about to finish, yeah? I was seeing a lot of love and I was getting excited. Now, 5, outlining best strategies for approaching stakeholders, because stakeholders, you know, there are people who are bringing a lot on board, and therefore you can't just approach them anyhowly. You know, the way you approach somebody will determine whether you are going to get what you want from them or whether you are not going to get what you want from them. And then, therefore, you must have a strategy for approaching them. Then outlining monitoring and review mechanisms, we have to do that. And then documentation of all activities. Thank you. Thank you, Puleng. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a powerful presentation. Deeply appreciate. Could you please stop your share? Then we'll get to see each other. So right at the top, there should be a button that says stop share. Fantastic. Thank you. Please, everybody, give Dr. Olubandwa a serious round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I'll hand over to Brian for a short Q&A session before we go on a break. Dr. Olubandwa is still here, Brian, and Godfrey is still here as well. So please engage.
Wonderful.
In fact, I'll pin.
I thank you too. I am acknowledging that the ambassador from the AU has not been able to come. Maybe she'll connect later on. But we thank the two of you for your great presentation. I'll open both the chat room as well as, well, we'll do it by chat. If you have specific questions for Dr. Olubandwa or for Father Zamojo, please quickly write it into the chat and I will recognize you based on your question. While those chats come in, Father Zamojo, do you have any response to what Dr. Olubandwa had said?
Yes, Brian, because I thought my thing was to throw it over there. My response to that, I would like to thank her so much for her building up. But you see, in this type of things we're doing, there are principles, visions, and then practices. You must separate them. If you don't build the principle itself, and then the practices, is going to be very, very difficult. I think in the beginning, we have to build up the principles, the vision, the groundwork. All the other things that my sister said are good. But I think we rather, because those are the things, why is for example, I'm going to give an example. If there is bad management, bad partnership, it's because the people building it are not all aligned. They don't share the same vision. So my question here is that all those things are nice. These are techniques, but if they're not built on something more fundamental about organizational things, about the vision, about where we're going, everything changes. So that's why what you and myself said and herself, they are complementary. But I'd rather go back and say, okay, what we do is if we don't change the basic orientation, the problem there, basic orientation is not going to work tomorrow, because it's like telling a child, do this, wash your hand, do this. The kid can learn it. But you must tell the child, why does he have to wash her hand? Why does he have to do this? So in the beginning, the law is written into her or his heart. So it's no longer the practices she's doing the mother told her, but the mother must train her in such a way, inbuilt one, internal logic, so that every other thing she's doing comes from that well of oriented, of well, from a source that has been touched. So for me, the question what we're doing in Africa today is very, very important. We must be radical enough to solve the problem. If we go on principles, left and right, all those techniques, they are nice, extremely nice. But for me, I think the basic thing to do, solving the partnership thing, is basically all the members, they are all agree, they are passionate. So to me, the thing is vision, shared vision, and then the paradigm. So if you don't get them, the vision, where we are going, a new utopia, everybody is sold into it. And then when you are sold into it, you'll be willing to do those things. You'll be willing to learn new tricks, new techniques. So I want to separate the core thing about it and the techniques of management. If we do only the techniques of management, it's just navigating, I think so. But I think the two of them are complementary, and I would like to join them together. Let's get the vision going. Let's get the shared principles going. Let's get the paradigm shift going over there. And then that, because of the importance of what we're doing, we'll be willing to learn. And as we are going around, the principles we learned yesterday could be changed on the road. So for me now, what we're trying to say is, let's Africans, let's just move away from, okay, they are doing this, we're going to do the same thing. Let what we want to do determine the form we're going to do it. Let what we want to do determine the form we're going to do, because contextualizing it in South Africa, in Northern Africa, in West Africa, is based on the shared values, shared principles. Then in each place, the management, the partnership thing will change depending on the culture, depending on what is going over there. So this is really what I want to do. Two of them are complementary. And in each one, you contextualize it by what is going over there. For example, the way you manage partnership in West Africa is not going to be the same thing in North Africa, in Southern Africa, because historical antecedent. But if we all share the same vision, the same paradigm, and acquire the same principle, scientific principles, we'll be able to contextualize those things that my sister talked about. It's what we contextualize. Otherwise, it's going to be one shape doesn't fit all. One shape doesn't fit all. So this is the real thing I want to add over there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had one question. When Dr. Olubandwa spoke about farmers being equal and coming to negotiate at the table, the challenge I saw is that many farmers, especially the smallholders, they don't feel equal. They don't believe that they're equal. And here comes someone with money, because he who has the gold makes the rules. He who comes, so someone comes with the money and they articulate something and the farmer says, okay, challenging, without challenging it, and therefore they are no longer equal. And I see then the possibilities of the hidden agenda. I see the possibilities of conflict. Can any one of you respond to that?
Yeah. Yeah, let me respond. Brian, thank you, my brother. Thank you. That name again. I appreciate what you have said about the vision, the mission, very true. And that is why I started by saying, before you get into a partnership, you need to understand, you need to agree all these things that we are talking about. You need to have an agreement. You need to have a vision. You need to have a mission so that during the partnership, you don't go against all these that you have agreed right from the beginning, and you should not change. And that's why I talked about any relationship where there is disagreement, that relationship does not work. Partnerships can work, partnerships may not work. It depends on the partners. I agree with you that partnerships in Central Africa could be very different with partnerships in East Africa. For us in this workshop, we have come from all countries in Africa, or most countries in Africa. So when we are talking about partnerships, let's also think outside the books, outside the books. Can we be able to form a partnership, an African one, to solve African problems? Isn't it true that we have similar problems in Africa? They could not be exactly the same, but they could be kind of related. Maybe we can be able to do this. This is thinking outside the box. Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, about the small scale farmer. About the small scale farmer not having power, and this big donor coming with a lot of money, and therefore has to impose whatever he has to impose on this small scale farmer. Yeah, the small scale farmer also has power. What we do, we encourage them to work in groups. There's power in groups. You know, the more they are, the more they speak the same language, the more they have the same goals, same objectives, they can actually fight for themselves, and the donor will be able to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question. Thank you. We have a question.
Brian, if you don't mind, let me just answer my sister's thing about the farmers thing, the relationship. You see, that's why an organic relationship should be developed. You see, those conflicts come from a notion of what is more important in today's world that is crazy, as you said, the normalized thing that is, we normalize what is not normal. Power, money, those are the things we make very important today. But in the type of relationship I'm talking about, want to be organic one. Those things are no longer important. It's like, which is more important, my head, my hand, or sort of things. It's the organic one. All of them are important. But in our messed up world, money is important. The only game in town is power and money and kind of thing and influence. In a new one we are building, we want to de-emphasize those things, the old way, the old paradigm. This is it here. So that money thing, where you have more money, you influence it. But in a new organization, that's why I was insisting that we want to build, is based on organic, synergetical thing. It's no longer how much money you have, but kind of things you have. In what we're doing as Songhai, we see all of them as players to score a goal. It doesn't matter you are playing full back or left back, any kind of thing. Today's world has given weight to this money, power, and they are now using it to mess up organic relationship, organic partnership. In order to develop a new one that is African today, we must de-emphasize those things, money, power, influence. We will never create it. These aberrations, as you started saying, Brian, in the beginning, we have normalized what is not normal. We've normalized the influence of money and power traffic over there. We cannot, that's why I was saying in the beginning, if we don't, killing ourselves up, develop a new ethics, a new love ethics, I call it agape ethics, I call it over there as a priest. It's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. So what you said, Brian, is extremely important. We cannot build a new wine in a new wineskin. Otherwise it's gonna bust. We're asking us to build a new thing going. What you're talking about, these dynamics of money, of partnership, working together, synergy, is a new wine. But we must build it with a new wineskin that is flexible, that is really going to there. So in a new partnership, we must de-emphasize those elements of our culture, of our society that has made organic or sustainable communities live today. So we can't divorce agricultural revolution today with the organic divorce from the new ethics from the new relationship we are building today. So in what we are doing as Songhai, we already done it. We don't come in with we emphasize on what is common, what is really good. Some factors, some, what I may call them, the profiles that can build that teamwork. So the passion of the person, his knowledge base, and what we gain at the end. And you see everybody from different, they're working together, they're respecting each other over there. So this, depending on how we see the new society, not just agriculture. You see, this is not just agriculture. Agriculture is a part of the building. The mistake we made, we take agriculture out from the society. It must be embedded. All the things we're doing must be embedded in a new world vision, societal vision that we're doing today. So this is how I'm seeing it today. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some more questions that popped up, and I'm not sure we'll be able to address all of them. I'm going to give the quote unquote microphone to Mercy Adero, who had a question.
Thank you, Brian, for this opportunity. And thank you, Dr. Olubandor and Nza Mujo. You have great names and backed up by great presentations. Well, let me just get direct to my question. Dr. Lubando talked about the need of assessment in assessing partnerships. And my question is, where is the place of assessment of current situation in terms of the farmers, the challenges that the farmers face? And of course, we are here because we want to build the capacity of institutions, regardless of the levels that you talked about. You talked about policymakers, governments, and financial institutions. So where is the place of also assessing institutional capacity, like Dr. Nzamujo rightfully said, that we cannot handle the subject of agriculture in exclusion, but we have to have a holistic approach that brings in the society, the environment, and of course the bottom line, because these institutions are in business. So we need to have this holistic view. So where is the place of institutional capacity and shared paradigms for partners? And allow me to just briefly talk about myself. I am a consultant in sustainable finance. And what I know is that most financial institutions get into the space of agriculture or agribusiness financing without looking at the intricacies of this space. They don't understand the contribution that some of these technologies we adopt, or the ones that they finance, have on the environment and have on the societies that they serve. They also don't understand how this affects the farmers in terms of the challenges that it brings to their yield. So it is important that we get it from you and also from the team, how we are going to handle the aspect of current situation assessment at all levels, because otherwise, if we only look at it from the institutional level and leave out the farmers who we want to serve, then like Dr. Nzamujo says, there is no shared vision, and so we are going to crash. So to ensure sustainability, how are we going to, effect this? Thank you.
Yeah, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
May I kindly also ask, Dr. Mutuku is in the house. Dr. Mutuku?
Yes.
She said she has a problem with it, but I'm sure she can unmute. She can also contribute. She can also help. Yeah. But Mercy, looking at what you are saying, maybe Dr. Mutuku will add for us. Looking at what you are saying, Mercy, I think this is why this workshop is very important. And not only you, but also the previous presenter. We are talking about the mission. We are talking about the financial institutions. I'm very happy that you are a consultant there. And therefore, you'd actually correct this. You know, many times financial institutions have given even money, even loans that have gone to waste, because whom do they give to? What are they going to do with it? Do they understand the people they are giving? Have they engaged them? And that is what we are talking about, this partnership, you know, that they should be able to understand these people and they should be able to work together. They should bring this on board and expect this. There should be mutual agreement. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if Dr. Mutuku can add. Dr. Mutuku?
Yes, Dr. Lubantwa, thank you. I'm here. I'm going to switch off this camera. I've switched on, but I'm switching it off because of my problem with connectivity. One thing actually, what has been bothering me about that particular question that has been asked is about the disconnect between the players actually on the ground. I said I'm an agricultural researcher. I spend much of my time doing research and teaching. One thing that I have found is a big problem is especially the smallholder farmer coming to that space where they interact with the rest of the players at the same level. And having an extension workforce that is concentrating so much on the production and not on the other items that are necessary in that particular system to be able to bring about this sustainability that we are talking about. And those are some of the things that I believe as we go on in this workshop, then we should be able to think creatively on ways in which we can advise about. So really what I'm saying, I really don't have an answer to it, but I'm actually just adding my own issues, the problems that have come across a smallholder farmer that doesn't have the voice that really would make them interact with the rest of the stakeholders at the same level, and with an extension workforce that is concentrating more on the production and not on the market and not on the processing. If it is processing, then we talk about the small kind of, the small scale kind of activity using rudimentary, what I would call rudimentary technologies. But how would we enlarge the capacity of the people at the grassroots, you know, to be able to think what Dr. Lubantwa, you called thinking out of the box, just enlarging their capacity. I think it's something that we need to wrap our minds around in this workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There were other questions, but I asked, this is Mrs. Morenia, and we have Hennington Odame. You had some questions. We will ask you to hold them, and when we come back from a break, we can get into group and continue this. The intention of the question answer, it was kept at 10 minutes because we knew there would be a lot of questions with you here. We'll take it into the discussion, into our breakout rooms and continue that. Puleng, would you want to lead us into about the break?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for such a rich discussion. And please, everyone, I'm going to remove my spotlight from my panelists and from everyone who has contributed so that all of us are in gallery mode. Please click on gallery mode so we all get to see each other. And then can we please give a round of applause to all our panelists. The level of engagement, the richness that we have received from everyone's contribution has been extraordinary. And we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope the discussions will continue to be as intense, as engaging as we harness this area that we're exploring today. Now it's 28 minutes after the hour, and we would like you to take a good 15-minute break. When you do take a break, please step away from the computer for a while. So don't get off Zoom, because sometimes it's a problem trying to reconnect, but you simply click on stop video. It will stop showing your video, and then mute yourselves, make sure that you're muted, and then we'll play some really good music in the background, and we'll play a nice screen in the background. Go and grab some coffee, take a walk, go outside, get some sunlight. If you have sunlight here in Johannesburg today, it's no longer raining, we have a bit of sunlight, and stretch a little bit, and you really like exercise a bit, because when you come back, we're going to need you at your most thinking best. So it's 30 minutes after the hour, wherever you are at, whether when you come back, it will be 11:45 or 12:45 or 9:45, it doesn't matter, but 15 minutes to the hour, please come back. So if you are in Eastern African time, that will be 11:45 to 12. If you are in Central African time, that will be 11:45. If you are in Brian's time, that will be 9:45, or 10:45 rather. So please, let's just come back after 15 minutes. We'll play you some good music in the background and see you shortly. Thank you.
is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is my promise. This is why my heart is filled with praise. This is my promise. This is why my heart is filled with praise.
When you're in business, you don't always have proper cash flow. When you don't have
Ukude phofo lindawo yamageza Ukude phofo lindawo yamageza Ukude phofo lindawo yamageza